In last session, we saw how to deploy a Windows Server VM and how to deploy a web server on it and how to access that web server. Right. Today, we are going to deploy a Linux virtual machine and the platform will be Ubuntu. Then we'll be deploying a web server on that machine. So we'll be building up a Linux web server after deploying the Linux VM, and we'll try to access that web server over the internet. So let's move and create a Linux virtual machine. I'm going to select Azure virtual machines on the create button. We'll give the resource group. So I'm going to give the resource group as Azure Lab. We'll give the virtual machine name as Linux WS Web Server 01. I'm going to select the region as Central India and availability set options. I'll deny any infrastructure redundancy. Security, I'll give the standard security. And in the image, I'm going to select Ubuntu 22 version, Ubuntu Server 22 version. Now here we'll go with the sizing as 2 virtual CPUs and 4 GB of RAM. And I want to authenticate my with the help of password. I'm going to authenticate my machine with the help of password, and I'm going to give the username as sp admin. Password I'll be assigning. I'll assign the password. Reiterate the password. So hold on. I'll type the password. Okay. So now public inbound ports. I'm going to select public inbound ports as SSH only at present, through which I'll be accessing my Linux virtual machine. As on the Windows Server machine, we were accessing through the RDP port number 3389. Here we are going to access through SSH. So we'll keep this port open. We'll move to disk. So at present, I'm going to leave the OS disk type image default where having premium SSD, but I'm going to use standard SSD. I am not going to attach any data disk. We'll just move next to networking. And on the networking tab, I have a virtual network of Linux WS01, or I can use any existing virtual network, but I'll use this new network and with a subnet 10.1.0.0/24. It will be having a public IP. It is going to have the network security group, and public inbound ports will be allow selected ports. We'll delete the public IP and NIC when VM is deleted, right? So we'll be using the delete public IP and NIC when the VM is deleted. Load balancing options, I'm not going to select any load balancing options. We'll move next to the management tab. I'll give the shutdown time with the 7 p.m. for Indian Standard Time. After 7 p.m., my machine should shut down automatically. So it is going to trigger an email on my this email address approx half an hour before. And for OS updates, I'm going to select image default OS updates. Next, monitoring, I'll skip it. Advanced options, I'll skip it. Tags, I'll skip it. We'll go with review plus create. So it is going to review my settings, what options we have selected. And so it is going to bill me approx 3.5 rupees per hour. Apart from that, I'll also be billed for public IP address and the storage separately when I am not using the machine. If I'm using the machine, I'll be billed at this cost. So these are the settings we have selected, and we'll click on the create button. So my Linux virtual machine is getting deployed. So my machine is ready. So let's go to the virtual machines. Our Linux machine is ready. It is in the running state. It is having the operating system as Linux. So let's navigate to the machine. We'll copy the public IP address and we'll try to access the machine with the help of tool called putty, right? So we want to access this machine remotely, right? So we'll go to the tool putty. I'm having already tool installed on my machine, the putty software. I'm just going to provide the IP address and connection type. It is selected SSH, which has the default port number 22. I'll be navigating to the appearance and I'll change the font size. So I'll select the fonts as Lucida console with the size of 20 and I'll come back to the session. So my IP address we have copied 20.219.149.70. We'll click open. We'll accept the certificate. So now it is asking login as. So I'll provide my username, that is SP admin. Now it is asking for password. Let me provide the password. If my password is correct, we have logged into our Linux machine, to our Ubuntu machine, which is on our Azure cloud. And we can see this is our machine name. Now we want to configure this machine as a web server. I want to configure this machine as a web server, right? So first of all, the most important thing I'm going to do is I'm going to update the binaries of this machine. I'm going to update the binaries of this machine. So in order to update the binaries, I'll be using the apt get update command. But as I want to run the command as an admin, I'll make the use of sudo command, sudo apt get update, and we'll press enter. So it is updating my binaries. So it has updated my all binaries. Now I want to install a utility called Nginx. Nginx is a utility, as on our Windows machine we have IIS, which is a web server. On Linux, we have Nginx, a web server. We have HTTPD. We are going to make use of Nginx. So in order to install, we'll make the again use of sudo command apt get install Nginx, and we'll press enter. So it is asking, do you want to continue? You require approx 8345 KB of additional disk space. So I'll say yes, I want to continue. So it is downloading from internet the package and installing it. Right. So my services have been started. Right. So my service got installed Nginx and it has started the web service. Right. So I'll minimize my this putty session. We'll copy the IP address. Right. We'll go to the new tab and we'll try to access this web server if we are able to access or not. We'll be able to access or not. Yes, Krishna.
Yes, we can.
Yes or no. We are not able to access. Why? What's the reason? Yes, Rajesh. What is the reason why we are not able to access it?
I don't know, sir. Linux is completely new for me.
No, but here it is not the Linux issue. It's not the Linux issue.
Or
For
we
the
have
web
to
server.
HTTP in as inbound port.
Yes, correct. So on the
HTTP.
Azure portal, on the Linux machine networking side, we need to permit the HTTP service port and HTTPS. Right? Then only our website will be loaded, or the default web browser page, web page will be loaded of the Nginx. So let's navigate to our Linux machine. We'll go to the networking, right? So here we have inbound port rules and outbound port rules. So at present on the inbound port rules, we have only SSH allowed, right? Rest you can see on the rule number 65,000, we have allow VNet inbound traffic from any port to any protocol from any what is the source? Source is virtual network and destination is virtual network. So internal traffic is allowed. Then on the rule number 65,001, load balancer traffic is allowed from the source load balancer to any destination, and deny all inbound traffic. Apart from that, any inbound traffic is denied. It is not allowed. And the most important thing, if I come to this rule, SSH rule, right? This rule we created with a priority 300, it has created. Name is SSH, port number is 22, source and destination are any. If I click on this Eclipse button, I can delete this rule. And if I click on this, I'll be able to modify the rule. I'll be able to modify this rule. But if I come to this rule, if I click on this rule, it is not opening. It is not opening. But if I click here, it is opening. This I am not able to open the rule 65,000, 65,001, and 65,500. If I try to delete also this rule, delete button is disabled. Delete button is disabled. Means what? When you create any virtual machine on the Azure platform, it has three default rules, inbound rules: 65,000, 65,001, and 65,500. Those are created by this Azure and they are managed by Azure. You cannot manage them. You cannot manage them. In the same manner, if you go to outbound port rules, by default, any traffic outside the Azure network is denied. You can see it is denied. All internet outbound traffic from any source to internet is allowed, right? All internet traffic from any source, from your any source to internet is allowed, right? From virtual network to virtual network is allowed. Apart from that, anything is denied. Anything is denied. So these are the default rules. And again, here we have priority 65,000, 65,001, and 65,500. So here also I'll be not able to delete. So these three rules in the inbound rule and outbound rule are created by the Azure, and those rules are managed by Azure. We can't have control over them. But the more priority rule you have, let's say I want to allow something. So I should have a priority above this, right? So let's say if I want to add inbound port rule, source is my any from anywhere the request come to my HTTP, right? So destination is my machine. I can give this IP address or service tag or application group or any destination. Source port range is any from any port number, or here I can select service. So I'm selecting HTTP service, right? And I can define the source port number port range as 80 also, but I'll leave as wildcard character any port number. And action is allow. I'm allowing it, right? So this destination port range is 80. My service is HTTP. So here I can allow HTTP. So here predefined services are given. But let's say if I don't know my service, I know the port number, I can go for custom service also, right? Rest the known services are given here. So at present I'm allowing HTTP, which has a port range of 80. Protocol is TCP. Action is allow. Priority will be 300. I can modify the priority. Just the priority rule should not exist here, right? So you can see rules are processed in priority order. The lower the number, the higher the priority. We recommend leaving gaps between rules 100, 200, 300, etc. so that it's easier to add new rules without having to edit existing rules, right? It has automatically taken a name. I'll leave the name as it is. We can modify our custom name also. The name it has taken allow any HTTP inbound traffic, right? We'll say add. So I'm adding the rule. Now it takes a couple of seconds to apply, approx 10 seconds it takes to apply. So now you can see the rule has been added at port number 310, which is 80 port number, and source is any, destination is any, action is allow. I'm going to add HTTPS service also. So let's add inbound port rule. Again, I'll select service as HTTPS. Port number is 443. Source and destination IP address is any. Protocol is TCP. Action is allow. Priority will be 320, and it is going to allow HTTPS inbound traffic. We'll add. So we have added the rule. So we have added the HTTP and HTTPS traffic. Now let's go back to our IP address page where we try to browse. We'll just refresh it. Now we can see we are able to load the Nginx web page. We are able to load the Nginx web page. So what we have done, we created a Linux virtual machine. Then we deployed a web server on that Linux machine with the default web page of that machine. Then we added inbound rules, port numbers for HTTP and HTTPS, and then we are able to access that web page with the help of respective IP address. Now let's say if we go to networking back on the overview tab. Now here we have a DNS name which is not configured. DNS name which is not configured. Let's say I don't want to access my web page using a public IP address, which is a security concern. I want to assign a DNS name to my users so they can access through a public DNS name. I'm not at present, I'm not going to assign a private DNS name. Right. I want to use the public DNS name of the Azure. So I can select the DNS name, I can click not configured, I can click on the configured not configured button. So it is saying you can give a DNS name label, which is optional, right? So an A record will be added, right, to your public IP addresses, and it will resolve my label. So your label means your name dot centralindia.cloudapp.azure.com. So let's give any name. So I'm going to give the name as Linux WS Web Server 2024. So it is validating. It is showing me green mark. That means the name is valid. Linux WS Web Server 2024 dot centralindia.cloudapp.azure.com. Let's save it. So it is going to bind with my IP address 20.219.149.17. So here we have the same at IP address 20.219.149.17. So my DNS is saved. Now let's go to the overview tab. Sorry, this is my Linux IP. We'll go to the virtual machine. And you can see now we have the DNS name. If we now copy this DNS name, right? Let's go to the in private window and try to resolve our web page using this DNS name. So it is, the request is going to HTTPS. We don't have any SSL certificate configured on our Linux machine. So it has navigated or forwarded the request to HTTP, and with the help of our public DNS domain name, we are able to resolve our web page. We can make use of custom DNS domain names also. We'll see that option where you can configure custom DNS domain when we are studying the networking portion. At present, we are on the compute section, right? So I hope till now it is clear. Yes,
Yes, sir. It's clear.
yes, Rajesh.
Clear, sir.
Right. So what we did, we created a first Linux virtual machine, right? We connected using the tool putty. Then we installed a we updated the binaries. We installed the web server. We tried to access the web server using the public IP address. We were not able to access. Then we added the inbound port rule. Then we were able to access. Then we configured a custom DNS domain name, public DNS domain name, which is the service provided by Azure. And now we are able to access with the DNS domain with the help of DNS domain name also. Right? Clear till now?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Now let's say if we go to our virtual machines, I'll navigate to my Windows virtual machine. I'm having this Windows virtual machine. I have deleted the machine which we deployed that day. Now let's say I want to attach a disk to this machine. This is my Windows machine. Right. So if I want to see what is the operating system, you can see it is using 2019 data center edition. Right. So probably we deployed this machine that day only, right? Yeah, we deployed this machine that day, right? So I'm having this virtual machine. Now I want to attach a disk to this virtual machine. So I can go to disk. At present, I'm having OS disk on my machine. The OS disk is this, and it is using premium SSD LRS, right? Which is of size 127 GB. Now I can, if I'm having any existing disk, I can attach an existing disk, or I can create and attach a new disk. So I'll create and attach a new disk. So once I click on create, so it is asking LUN numbers. I'll give the LUN number 0. I'll give the disk name. So I'll say data disk. Now it is asking storage type. So if I select, it is showing me local redundant storage or premium SSD. I'll go with premium SSD, which is the default. And at present, I'll give the size as 40 GB. And encryption, I'll say platform managed, and host caching, I'll enable read write and I'll apply it. So my data disk, another data disk is added to my Azure VM, right? It is added. Now if we go to the overview of the machine and let's power on the machine. Let it get powered off. So my machine is powered on. Let's try to access it. I don't remember the username. Yeah. What is my server machine? Let the server manager pop up here. Okay, so this is my server machine. Server manager pop-up has appeared. Now we added one more disk, right? Let's the population get completed. It is populating my server manager with services. Blue strip is running in the top. Right. Now let's go to the disk management portion. Disk mgmt.msc. So it will give me a pop-up of the new disk. You can see disk 2 is attached. I'll go with the GPT partition table. And you can see now we have disk 2 of 40 GB. This disk we attached as an add-on disk, data disk, right? So we have disk 0, which is the OS disk of 127 GB. This is the temporary storage. You should not store anything on your temporary storage because this is Azure managed disk for the virtual machine. Azure is going to use this disk. It is of small size 8 GB only. We have 40 GB disk where we can make this use as a data disk. Now we can create partitions as we do on our machines. I've created one E drive partition of 40 GB. Right now, if I go to File Explorer, let's go to File Explorer, this PC, and we can see we have 40 GB partition. Right. So this is how you can make use of disk. Now let's say I'll shut down the machine. We'll shut down this machine. I've powered off this machine. Now let's come back to the Azure. Let's get powered off. We'll refresh it. It is powered off. Now I can go back to the disk. Now let's say I don't need this machine anymore. I don't need this machine anymore. So what I can do, I can detach this disk. I can simply detach this disk and apply. So my disk will be already there. My disk will already be there. Nothing will happen to my disk. Now I can remove this simply this machine. Let's say we'll go to virtual machines. We have removed this machine and I'm going to create a new virtual machine. I'm going to create a new virtual machine. Let's say I'll select the Azure Lab resource group. We'll create a Windows Server machine. So let's say it is Win Server SRV01 machine and Central India. I'll specify no redundancy and standard security type. Let's say we are providing Windows Server 2019 machine, 64-bit, same configuration, two virtual CPUs, 4 GB of RAM. We'll assign the username and password. Okay, I have sent password, port number 3389 I'm opening. Now when we come to the disk, so at present I'm getting a OS disk image default 127 GB, which is OS type S premium SSD. I can use standard SSD, standard HDD also. I'll go with standard SSD. Now here we have data disk. So I can create and attach, or I can attach an existing disk. I'll say attach an existing disk. So it will be available in the list. You can see data disk name was of the disk was data disk and size of 40 GB. I'll select the disk. Now I can attach it directly. I can attach it directly. And this is how I can attach my existing disk to any new virtual machine or to an existing virtual machine. If I want to attach to an existing virtual machine, let's say this my machine is a different machine. It is not the same machine. We can go to disk and here we can attach disk. So again, my disk will be available. If I have multiple disk, it will be available here. I can simply attach a disk and I'll detach this. And if we come to storage, or let's say I'll say disks, I'll say disk. We'll go to disk. We can see we have three disks here. One is of 127 GB Windows OS disk. One is of 30 GB Linux OS disk. You can see the owner is the my virtual machine name, and this is data disk. No owner is there. It is not attached to any VM. I can create a disk here also, right? I can define the resource group, disk name. Let's say I'll say data disk 01, Central India. No availability zone is required, right? Size it is saying. I'll click on change size and I'll select let's say I need standard SSD of 32 GB. We'll move to new, no encryption ID, manage, platform manage. Networking, I'll leave as it is. Advanced, I'll leave as it is. I don't want to share the disk. And we'll click on review and create. So I'm creating the data disk of 32 GB. The disk name is data disk 01. Our data disk is created successfully. Let's go to the virtual machine. Now, if we select again our Windows virtual machine, we go to disks, right? So now my disk is platform independent. It is not Windows or Linux, right? So I can, when I try to attach to my Windows machine, right? Here you can see I'm having data disk 01 32 GB and data disk of 40 GB. So this disk is in my resource group December 2023. This disk is in my resource group Azure Lab. Both are in a different resource group. Now what I'll do, I'll cancel this. We don't want to attach here. We'll go to a Linux machine. We'll go to a Linux machine. We'll go to disk and we'll try to attach disk here. So if we now see here again, I am able to attach the disk. Both are in a different resource group. My machine is in a different resource group. Disks are in a different resource group. I can still attach to my existing virtual machines. Apart from that, if we go to the sizing, now let's say I'll go to my Windows Server virtual machine for better understanding of the sizing. Now, at present, I am using a size of my virtual machine, which is standard B2S, which is having two virtual CPUs, 4 GB of RAM. Now, let's say tomorrow, after some time, I see that my server is having a load and I need four virtual CPUs and 16 GB of RAM, or four virtual CPUs and 32 GB of RAM machine. Right, so I don't need to change the machine itself. I can just increase the or change the size of the machine. I can go to the size parameter under settings, and as per my requirement I can select the size. So you can see I can filter as per the RAM. I can say I need 32 GB of RAM, 24 to 32 GB of RAM, for example. I'll apply it, okay. And I need 4 core processor, right? So it is going to filter it. Now if I go to DC series, you can see confidential compute I'm getting. If I go to E series version 5, I'm getting memory optimized machine, which is having E4 ADS version 5 with 4 virtual processors and 32 gigs of RAM. And if I want to see the cost, right? So cost, why does not visible? Let me, yeah, you can see now cost is visible. So by this first machine, it is having cost of 9,516 rupees a month approx, which has IOPS of 64,000, and I can attach 150 SCSI disk. I can attach 150 SCSI disks to my this machine. This machine has 11,000 IOPS. It has a cost of 20,000, and this machine has the same settings of E4 ADS version 5, right? This is E4 DS version 5. It has 17,000 cost. So as per my requirement, I can select the machine and I can just click resize it. Once I select
Santosh sir,
resize, yes.
if you see the ED, can you show that Azure portal? Yeah, here under E series, the first one E4 ADS V5
Hmm,
and the last
hmm,
one.
hmm.
So here, why the configuration is same, but why the cost is different, sir?
Good question. So now the reason can be E4 ADS versus E4 DS version 5. The difference can be that the space in the E4 ADS server data center space would be very more, right? Whereas in the data center where my E4 DS version 5 is landing, there the demand is more. So as the demand increases, the cost increases. First reason. Second reason can be that my E4DS version 5 is having a generation change of the processor. Let's say my E4DS version 5 V5 is using Intel Xeon fifth generation processor, whereas E4 ADS underscore V5 is using fourth generation processor. Then also the cost can vary. So if we navigate to Google, let's say for example, I'll copy this. Right, T4 ADS. So to me, right, so you can see we were in the E series, right? So it is for optimized and memory application, right? Now we'll go to pricing for Windows VMs for the E series, where we have pay as you go model. And right, so we have E, what was, let me check, E4DS and E4 ADS, E4DS and E4 ADS. So E4 ADS, EADS, and EDS, right? Right. So it depends on the region availability, right? So as I conveyed, it is generally whether in that data center my resources are free or not. Second, the generation of the processor is different. Let's say, for example, the EAV4 and EASV4 Azure VM series feature the AMD 7452 processor and provide with blah blah of RAMs. Whereas EASV5 and EADSV5 are based on the third generation AMD, right? So depending upon your series of the machine, if your generation of the processor is changing, your performance will change. And as your performance will change, your cost will vary. If you're using a new generation processor and old generation processor, right? So it depends. The cost of the new generation processor might be more or might be less because the generation has changed. Now most of the generation 4 is being used, whereas third generation demand is less. So demand is less, so the cost will be more, or if demand is less, maybe the cost can be less. So it depends in the data center configuration. Now let's go and try to fetch the pricing calculator, pricing table. So here it is. Okay, let's go to E series pricing table. Right, so let's to the pricing table for or right. So hold on. We'll go with E series. E ADS 5 series, right? Let's say US region, and I select INR, right? So you can see EADS version 5, it has 4 cores, 32 GB of RAM, approx 15,000 per month we are getting, right? And EDS we don't have here. That is E4 ADS, right? Version 5. Now let's try to fetch EDS. EDS is not available here, right? No, EDS version 5 is available, right? So you can see that cost is 17,000. Now here, when I see E4DS, E4DS is having 17,000 approx cost. Whereas if I go to EADS, right? Sorry, EADS. Hold on, I also got confused. E4, E4, both are E4. Right, so here if I go to E4, right? Let's try to find E4 first. E4, E4. Here I don't have E4 itself. You can see I don't have E4. No, E4 ADS, E4DS version 4 I have, E4 EDS. So it is EDS series, right? So if I
Sir,
go,
can we come down?
yeah,
If we, like if we not here, sir. Yeah, can we come down the cursor?
yeah,
Any,
this one,
no, sir. If we move the cursor to last one, maybe the number will come. I don't know. Okay, no, no, no.
right? So no, but here you can see we have this E4DS version 5, right? We have here we have
Yeah, yes, sir.
E4DS version 5, right? Now here 4 GB, 4 core, 32 GB, 17,000. But if we go with the same ADS, right? So you can see E4 ADS version 5 here it is almost similar, 16,000 pricing. Only 1,000 price gap is there in the East US region. But if I change the region, let's say I'll change Central India. Yeah, Central India. Right. So you can see now the E4 ADS went to 10,000, right? If I now select the E4 DS version, at E4 DS version 5, here it is 18,000. Right, now that was 10,000, this is 18,000. Why? Because now let's say many people are selecting this more, so the demand for this instance is more, so the price is higher. Whereas for E4 ADS version 5 the demand is less, and due to that the price will be less, right? So it depends upon the demand and supply, the price, and the number of instances that Microsoft has in that data center, availability in that data center, demand in that data center. Accordingly the price keeps on varying. Got it?
Got it, sir. Oh,
Right, so we can select the instance and we can click on resize, so my instance will be resized and I'll be able to use the new configuration. So this is how we can change the size instance. Yes, Krishna, any doubt?
sir, there, can we use any type of can we use any type as a free trial, like their general purpose and optimized and so many types?
Yeah, you can use, see, uh, in the free tier, whatever you are getting, you will be billed for the cost, right? So let's say whatever cost I am having, right? So for example, let me pull the cost, right? So you can see I'm having the cost. Now at present I'm using this instance, two virtual CPUs, 4 GB of RAM. If I select two virtual CPUs, 8 GB of RAM, and I select resize, I'll be able to use that. But I'm having my subscription. You guys don't have subscription. You are using a free trial. So you get $150 usage. In that $150 only, you need to manage the things. Right? If you select the higher instance, your cost will go higher. So it will be deducted from 150 USD. Got it?
Got it, sir. And also, what about this one, sir? Can you just be overview on at IOPS? This is the last one.
This is IOPS, inputs output per second, maximum inputs output. So what are the IOPS? The transaction of the hard drive. When it is writing data to the hard drive, what is the IOPS it will be getting? Speed for writing data on the hard drive. That is our IOPS.
Okay, okay, sir. Clear, sir.
Input output per second.
Okay, clear, sir.
So it depends, your performance varies accordingly. See, here on this, I'm having 1280 IOPS. Here I'm having 3200 IOPS. Right, here I'm having 6400 IOPS. Here I'm having 1920 IOPS. So it depends. As per the IOPS also, my performance changes. Whereas here I can attach 8 hard drives. Here I can attach 16 hard drives. Got it?
Okay, sir. Got it, sir.
So
Clear.
for today, we'll keep this much, right?